Hello and welcome back to Tea with Tracy, coming to you live every Tuesday at 12, spilling relevant tips, trends, and talk in all things real estate and home ownership related. Today we are going to complete our environmental series. In past weeks we were talking about radon and mold within the home. Today we're going to be talking about well and septic systems and water quality or water safety for the water that comes into your home. My guest today has almost 30 years experience working with well and septic systems. He is my go-to person for this topic. Please help me welcome my friend and guest, the owner of D&H Environmental, Dan Haring. There we are. Hi, Don.
How you doing?
Good. How are you?
Good. I figured it out, apparently.
Yes, you did. We are connected live. Technology is fun.
Very nice. Very nice.
Yes. Thank you so much for joining us today to talk about a topic you know backwards and forwards. That's well and septic systems. And then we're going to just touch a little bit on why you should also test the water within your home if you have a well. So let's start at the beginning for those that aren't familiar, because many of us grow up, unless you lived in a home with well and septic and you just turn on the faucet and water comes out. But there's different ways of water coming into the home. And one of those ways is via a well. So how can you just give us the high-level overview of what is a well?
Certainly. So when you don't have city water supply, you have a private water supply. So the water literally is coming out of the ground on your property. So there's different styles of wells, and I can go on a dissertation for a day on that, but I won't do that to you.
Okay.
But it's literally simply a pipe either bored or driven into the ground to the water table, and you have a pump that either pushes water in from the well or pulls water in from the home from the well, and that's where your water comes from. It comes literally right out of the ground.
Okay. And so that the way that the well comes in, you said there's a pump. That's something that like a homeowner needs to put in, right? Like if you buy a vacant piece of land, obviously that pump is not there. That's something that you need to develop. This pump, is it something that, like, how long does that last?
Well, there's different styles of well, but a modern well, and we'll kind of stick to that because there's old school wells and there's all kinds of different things. But a modern well, the pump is actually in the well. So if you can imagine this pipe sticking out of the ground in your yard, it's either 4-inch steel or 5-inch PVC. It goes down in this area somewhere around 100 feet. It could be less or more. And that pump is actually down inside that pipe, down underwater, and just pushes water into the home.
Okay. And that's something that when you're going to purchase a home, that's something that you should have inspected to make sure that it's still functioning properly, to get an idea of maybe how much life it has left.
Yeah, certainly. Well, the thing with wells, it's a little bit ambiguous because a pump, whether it be a well pump or any electrical motor, you just don't know. It just fails one day and you don't have water.
And I know you can't put a specific number on it, right? Because that's when people ask me, well, what are, the price is going to be on home 6 months from now. It's like, okay, let me pull out my crystal ball. But just a general range. So if someone purchases a home and, the well pump has been there since the home, was built and, it's 20 years old, is that something that someone should, at least start to budget to replace?
Yeah, well, the generalization with a well is a well pump is 15, 20 years. 15 to 20 years. Yeah, right. And my last well went 24 years. I have a new well that I would anticipate I'd hopefully get that amount of time out of it. But it depends on usage, because you can have a home with a family of 2 or a family of 8. I know that's on the extreme side, but you do see it. Yep. And so the more it's used, the less life it has. It's just like a car. The more you drive it, the less life it has.
Sure, absolutely. So there's a range based on usage and age, and there's no magic number, but that's a good estimate for someone to use. So,
right, and I'm so sorry, I don't want to interrupt you, but that's for the pump, not the well.
Right.
The well, these modern wells, I don't want to say they go forever, but it should be somewhat indefinite. It would just be the pump and some other mechanicals with the well that might need maintenance or replacement. But the well itself, should go on and on.
Okay. So it should be something, there should be a continuous supply from the well, and it's just the pump, the mechanical piece that could fail over time and would need to be replaced.
Correct. And that's barring anything unusual. Anything can happen, but yeah, normally that would be the case. Yeah.
Okay. So that's how the water comes in when we have a well, but then there's also the septic field, right? Or the septic system. Right. And that's, so when you don't have a sewer system where, it's put in by the city, takes the water that comes out of your home and drains it, you need to have your own septic system. So can you just give us a overview of what a septic system is?
Sure. And I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do this in a way where I'm going to turn away from the sun behind me.
Yeah.
I feel like you can't
when you're a little bit closer, you're brighter. Yeah.
There we go. And okay. So, oh gosh, now I can see myself. But anyways, a septic system takes place of sewer if you don't have sewer. And in simple terms, in most cases, all your waste goes to a septic tank. Generally 1,000 gallon to a 1,500 gallon concrete box in the ground. All the waste goes there. The solids are held back in a septic tank, that big box, and the fluids are siphoned into a septic field. A septic field, for the most cases, is a series of 4-inch PVC lines. They're perforated, buried in stone, and the fluids literally leach back into the ground. And real quick, I don't want to try to dominate the conversation, but septic fields fail. The tank really doesn't fail. It's just a big box in the ground full of you-know-what.
Yeah.
The field is taking on that wastewater. Although the solids are still in the tank, the fluid waste that exits that tank is dirty water. And the particles in that water build up in that stone over time. And that stone will start to seal, and your septic field will fail. Inevitably, septic fields fail no matter what. They don't last forever.
Okay. So that septic tank that's holding the waste, that's something that as a homeowner, you need to have cleaned out periodically, correct?
Correct. Yep. And that would vary. It could be anywhere from 2 years to 5 years. And it's going to depend on number of occupants, which is usage. And secondly, it would be the size of the tank. So just real fast, let's say a standard family of 4 or 5 with 1,000 gallon tank, you probably pump your tank every 2-3 years.
Okay.
If you have a 1,500 gallon tank, they're 2-chamber tanks. They're bigger, they have more capacity, and you could go easily 5 years. I've seen them, and I got to be careful, but I've seen people go 20, 25 years, and it's still fine. I wouldn't recommend risking that.
No.
For $400 every 4 years,
right?
Pump out your septic tank.
Yeah, have it pumped, and then does that help with the life of the septic field then? Because you said you have the tank. And then we have those lines that are coming out from the tank. Does that help expand that life?
It does. The reason, for a couple reasons. The first of which would be if you neglect it to the point that the tank gets so full of solid waste that the solids are now leaving the tank and ruining the septic field. Okay. So there's one reason. The other thing is when you pump a septic tank out, until it fills back up to its capacity, just hypothetically 1,500 gallons, so it might take a week or 2 or 3 depending on usage. That septic field is sitting dry. It's not taking on anything. And that downtime, that dry time is like a vacation for the septic field, and it makes it last longer. So you can't really overdo it, but you don't want to spend more money than you need to.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah.
So, and that's something that for potential home buyers, if you've ever purchased a home that had well and septic with me, you've met Don, and you know that he does a very detailed diagram for you, and he actually gives you a little class on well and septic, and specifically how your line, is set up as well on site. So it's actually very educational. And so anybody who might be new to well and septic, you need not fear. He'll explain it to you, and you'll feel very comfortable by the time you're done with your lesson. But
yes, you'll get well and septic 101.
Yes.
Crash course seminar.
I have sat through that class many times, and it's a fantastic class. It never gets old. So. But there's another piece of this too, right? So when we have the well, and the water's being pulled, like you said, from the water table into the home, it's a little bit different than the water that comes from, like if you have city water or even like a community well where there's a central location that is treating and checking the water, right? This is coming straight from the ground, and there can be elements in the water that you don't necessarily want in them for your drinking. So that's where water testing comes into play, correct?
Correct, yeah. So the standard for water testing is they say bacteria and nitrates, which breaks down to coliform E. coli, which are bacteria, nitrates and nitrites. That's kind of a national standard for safe water. Here in Michigan, arsenic is huge. I would always recommend an arsenic test be done because it is an area prominent for arsenic in the well water. Lead testing for homes that are older than 1987 or any city water supply, although we're not talking about city water, but any city water supply, you should test for lead. Lead would be in the solder in the plumbing homes 87 and older. Lead's less likely, the two biggest ones, although bacteria and nitrates are the standard, the two biggest ones are bacteria failure and arsenic failure.
Okay.
And it can be corrected. It can be fixed.
Right.
So never walk away from a home because of a failure in those arenas. You can have them fixed.
Right. And that's, this whole series, we've talked about radon and mold and now well septic and water, the water safety or water quality. And, that's part of it, is to educate viewers, homeowners, home buyers, that all of these issues, they're not, they're not detrimental. They are things that can be remediated, they can be corrected, and your home can be safe for you and your families. And I'll do another episode where we talk a little more in detail on what you can do for water. That's another episode, though. We'll talk about. But there are water filtration systems, and you can have them put on a single faucet. You can have them done for the entire home and remediate and remove all of those elements. So.
Right. Yeah. So quickly, like bacteria failure would be a well chlorination. They introduce chlorine into the well system. They flush it out. They sterilize out the bacteria. Lead, arsenic, and nitrates would be reverse osmosis water treatment, and that would correct that. So it's very easily correctable. And as you had mentioned, I could go on, and I'm not going to do that. But we
have to save something for their 101 class, right? You got to save a few things.
Right. Yeah, so we could even do, at one time break septic down in a little more detail and well down into a little more detail. But I think that's the gist of it.
Yeah.
But please, I have all day.
Yeah. Well, you don't, but we appreciate you taking the time to join us because I know you are a busy guy, and the other realtors who are watching know that you have to you'd have to know his cell phone number. You have to know Don's cell phone number, but no, he is a busy guy. He knows his stuff. He is one of the most sought out well and septic inspectors in the area. So I appreciate you taking the time out to join us today. So if you have any further questions on a well or septic system, please feel free to reach out and we can get those questions answered for you. And stay tuned. I think we will do some episodes coming up where we dive in a little bit deeper on those different systems and give you a little more detailed information. So, but thank you so much, Don, for joining us today. I appreciate you. I appreciate you being here. Thank you all for tuning in. And we'll see you next Tuesday at 12 on Team Tracy.
Thank you, Tracy.
All right.
Take care.
Thanks, Don. You too.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.